Hemshech Ayin Beis, volume 1, up to chapter Kuf Chof Aleph, 121, that's page Reish Lamedal 234, the beginning of discourse 31. V'lo yochel Yosef l'sapik. Shabbos Pasha Vayigash, 100 years ago, Tov Reish Ayin Gimel. And just as we've been doing, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, what is the summary? Ikara behirus de eres v'kelim b'madrega shel ha'maylam Atzilus. The primary shining, the primary brilliance or brightness of the energies in the containers are on the levels that are higher than Atzilus. So it's interesting, if you look here, this is officially called the content of the beginning of each mimer. The truth is that some of them times is the content at the end of the mimer, sometimes, but the Frierdiker Rebbe summed it up in his own way. So the last three mimarim, Padu Shalom, he said, Sfiris Evan Sapir Primis Akelim. In Lamed, that's 29, Mimer 29. Chanukah Mimer said, Sfiris Behiris Mitzada Eir. And now, saying, Ikar Behiris Deres Akelim Madrega Shalamayel Mahadsilis. So you see here, the gradation, the expansion, the growth of how he's climbing the ladder where Evan Sapir really is. So it began with the Kelim. First he said all Kelim. Remember, Kelim of Atzilus, as opposed to garments, are revealers. Garments are the concealers. Then, and the whole discussion, Yaakov and Esau. Then he went to Primis HaKelim. That the truth is, in chapter, and I'm just summing up, chapter 116, he says, in truth is, Chechenis HaKelim are also relatively concealers. And the real place is Primis HaKelim. And then in the last Maimer, my Chanukah, as the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, the main thing is now moving to Eir. That the real Behirus is Eir, not even Keli. And at the end, what we learned last was, in Eir itself, not only the Eir of Atzilus, not the Eir of Esses Sfiras, but the Eir that's higher than Atzilus. So you see here, literally, he's climbing from Kelim to Primis HaKelim, to Eir, to Primis HaEir, all the way basically, Keli to Primis HaKeli, Meir to Primis HaEir, like he said, as we learned in the summary of the last chapter. So that to me is the brief summary of really the whole flow. Now obviously all this follows Sfira's story and Sfira's number. So what we have here, and we're really coming now, this is the last mimer of this first section. After this the Rebbe Shab will take a break till Shavuos. We'll discuss, we'll continue learning obviously, but
wasn't Rabbi then?
Or the other way, I mean, everything's Hashgacha Pratis. In general, the Rebbe Rashab would leave twice a year. Once in the winter. Vayigash was like the end of December, basically. And for health reasons, it says in Chanech that the doctors told him to go to warm climates and near water. Which is why he went to south of France, Menton, and those places. And the second time would be in the summer, after Shavuos.
Maybe it was very hot in Lubavitch.
Yeah, but after Shavuos, he usually went just not far from Lubavitch, maybe 100 kilometers. I wrote up a review of all the summers where he spent. And they're all relatively. I don't know the reason. Listen.
Try to spend the summer in Lubavitch without air conditioning. It's like
okay. Or maybe Hashem Tzadik Avakana, the Rebbe has no truth. I don't think it was just a matter of heat and cold. The Rebbe didn't move. The Rebbe Rashab, I'm sure, had other discomforts. It wasn't just heat and cold. But that was the two reasons. The two. And when he stood for hours by oil, for years there was no air conditioning, no heating. What are you trying to make? That I've been to that they wrote their lives were controlled by comfort zones. That's for sure. Now that I can tell you. For the Rebbe Rashab, they were. You're asking technically. You want to know the reasons? That you can speculate whether it's air conditioning or heating. But I would say it's deeper reasons. But I'm just giving you the facts. We know the facts are like that. And Tov Reish Ayin Hey, so Ayin Gimel. This was so Vayigash, meaning basically from Vayichi till I don't know. He may have come back. There's history. You could read it. But generally, he continued. He resumed Shavuos Ayin Gimel. And did the same thing in Ayin Daled. Again, Ayin Gimel goes all the way Shavuos, all the way through Tishrei, and I believe that also. Let's see technically. So Ayin Dalet, I think also ends either by Yigash or close to by Yigash. Let me see. Yeah, here we are. Vayera. So Ayin Dalet is Vayera. Then, interestingly, in Ayin Hey, some say because the war broke out. Because in Tofresh Ayin Vov, which would be 1916 already, or 1915, they already moved from the Babish to Rostov. So in Ayin Hey, which means equivalent of 1915, the Maimorim go every week. It's relentless then. There's no stop at all. So where we are now is this, so to speak, the end of section 1, but we haven't ended yet. It's a pretty long mimer as it is. And I just summed it up that we're talking here about the interface, of course, of the spheres, and climbing from number to story, and then to brightness, or transparency and clarity, which is sapir behirus, and that went through the kelim and to the eris. So essentially, in the story of Yaakov, by taking the stone, which is the kelim, the esis, the letters, that on their own are like doimim, they're empty shells, mineral, compared to the intelligence within. He elevates that, unites it, draws down the oil, which is from Chochmah, or from the previous Keser, and as a result of that's setting the stage for Matan Torah, and for ultimately the future, l'asad laveh, v'shafti b'shalom, when he will return both level dimensions of peace, as he explains in Torah El Beis Avi, to the house of my father, which is, my father refers to Yitzchak, which is l'asad laveh Mashiach, v'hoya vayeli le'elekim, and then the Havaya today, which are like the energies, the Gvul energies that are in the containers, will be Elikim of the future. Meaning it will be like a container, that will be a container for far to Habli Gvul, the Etzema that's higher than Atzilus. And then the stone that I had turned into Matzeva, that I had lifted, that through my work, that brought to Mashiach, will in turn become Beis Elikim, will become a house for which Elikim, for the higher Elikim. Not for Havaya Leila, because containers can contain energy. But then now it will be containing, Beis Elikim will contain that what was once Havaya that was higher than containers will now be able to be inside the containers. And that energy, of course, leads to the higher Havaya, which is Yitzchak, like he says, 8 times Havaya. That will be the higher revelation that will come when Mashiach comes. And that all will be in Elikim, it'll all be in a previous inside Kalim. So basically you have the total seamless flow. There'll be containers and energies, but no longer will be just containers to minimal energy. There'll be containers to highest levels of energy. So how do we distinguish between the Kalim as they are Kalim to the energy today? So today, Primus HaKalim is the Kalim to the air spheres, air. Oh, that's how he explains it. So there's Eris in the spheres, in the Kalim. That is today. Through Avodah, of course, through Yaakov's Avodah. Then there's Etzema, but it's still not Atzilus. That's like somewhat above the containers. Right. Then there will become Havaya Elikim, that Havaya that's above the containers will become Elikim. And in turn, what will happen next will be the revelation of the higher Havaya. Okay, we got it. So, that's the key here. So in other words, in existence as we have it right now, there's a matter of containers and they're concealed, and they reflect a diminished type of energy. Yaakov's Aveda is he elevates it as much as he can do, throws down more and more until the moon even becomes full. So now the containers are containers, but what? To the energy of Atzilus. The previous containers are to the Etzema air. The regular containers is to the Chitzenius air. He said that as well earlier. He said that. It's a very important piece. Yeah. And the previous Akeli reveals the Etzema air. But then there's an air that always remains higher than the container. So that's like the Havaya de La'ela, the Havaya de L'Tata that is not coming down to Elikim. Mashiach comes, L'Asad Laveh, Havaya of today becomes Elikim, so that's in containers. The containers are now containers. The stone is now a container for Beis Elikim, for that level. And that level in turn allows a higher dimension of Eira Bligvul to now flow in. So you have all the levels covered. Got it.
What's the best we can do today?
The best. We can do a taste of the future also. I mean, remember, there's no real limit. It's all relative. Generally speaking, all the levels exist today too. But in the full-blown sense, it will be L'Asad Laveh. So just think of it as levels, and the complete level is when the Eir HaBligvul is flowing into Eir HaGvul, and the Eir HaGvul is flowing into the containers. You have a transparency from the bottom up. The best that can be possible, you don't want to destroy the Kelim. They're always going to be a Dira B'Tachtenim. So the best possible, obviously in the full-blown sense, is L'Asad Laveh. But we have a taste of it all, like Matan Torah example is a taste of what will be in the future. The way you would put today, you'd say is today, before Avodah, the Kelim are empty. You don't sense air, like in a regular life. When you do a mitzvah, that's what he said, you do a mitzvah, the Keli begins to become, your physical entity becomes a container for godliness. Torah is a little higher. Air is already more than just Keli. So we have all the taste of it all. It's just a matter of, in the full sense of it, it's all those stages in history. Okay. I think that's a critical piece. Now, this piece about mitzvahs is very, very important. Because mitzvahs, it says, like, there's a mitzvah, shenasim devorim atachtem kelim lelikus al derech kelim Atzilus. And then Torah is the yichud of Eris. So then Biras HaKelim, that's the yichud of mitzvahs. Mm-hmm. Look, the ultimately it comes down to you need Torah mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, the mile of a mitzvah is that it's literally with a physical thing. It's tachtenim. It's in the material existence. The chsarn of it is once it's in kelim, you don't have the ultimate highest revelations. When it comes to Torah, on the other hand, you have higher revelations, but it's through sublime work. It's not material work. It's more the mind. It's more learning and so on. That's why you need Mer Mitzvah and Torah. You need them both. It's a question of Gili and Etzem, essentially. The Kelim containers are far more connected to the Etzem, but their Gili is not there. On the other hand, Eir is more primarily Gili, revelation. So, what you want to have is today's world, the distortion is that nothing is revealed. So all you have are empty shells. At least consciously, it's empty shells. We don't see any revelation. What you want to have is, like I explained with the kindergarten example, with the letters. You want to have that the letters become containers for energy, and then they become containers for deeper energy and deeper energy. And it has to be a constant flow, ebb and flow, as they say, back and forth, where you want it to be internalized and integrated, and you want it at the same time to be transcendent. And that's the ultimate challenge. How do you fuse transcendence and immanence and integration? I mean, it's a challenge everything in life, where you're trying to always aspire to something more than you have right now. At the same time, you want it to be grounded. For example, when someone says, I'd like to have a peaceful life, so how peaceful do you want it to be? If you want it to be totally peaceful, so if you look like a cardiogram, the most peaceful place is a straight line. But you don't really want to have in a cardiogram a straight line, because that's essentially death. That means the heart isn't beating. The nature of a heartbeat, and same like the nature of breath, both are life forces, is it looks like this. It looks like a wave. You just don't want to be a wave where it goes. The hills are out of proportion with the valleys. You want it to be balanced. What that means psychologically and spiritually is that a human being has to have a healthy measure of angst, which means a level of restlessness. If it's too much restlessness, then it's a very high peak. It's like aspiring too much. And you also need to have resolution. So it's tension and resolution. It's the secret to everything in life. You need to have some measure of tension which causes you to motivate you to grow. And then you have to have a measure of resolution. So if you were to make a psychological cardiogram of your Ratzeh V'Shuv graph of your life, you can ask yourself on a daily basis, do you have a healthy measure of tension, a healthy measure of resolution? Most people's lives are unbalanced. The question is which way. For some it's a lot of tension, and for others it's too much resolution. They're too comfortable with themselves. And needs to always have the balance. There's no way that one works without the other. Now, also the question is what you're tension about. Some people make tension about things they shouldn't make tension about because they determine in their minds that a certain goal they have, which not necessarily is a goal that God wants them to have, or they may not achieve it. So that would be also an unhealthy measure of disproportionate tension based on an unrealistic expectation. Which is why I always say the most important thing is to know what your mission is. Because when you know what your mission is, you know that's where I have to have tension and resolution. Not someone else's mission. If you look at somebody else and say, hey, I wish I was like that person, you already right there started the wrong place. It has to be your cardiogram, not someone else's. And everybody has their measure of Eidus and Kalim. I'm just translating Eidus and Kalim a little more practical. So it's a matter of this balance. Ultimately, as a person integrates more into their lives, their tension also grows. What I mean by that, not that tension itself grows, they grow toward aspiring to greater levels, like Misha Yesh Leimon Reitz Messiah. Someone who has something wants more. So someone who's already accomplished, their tension is going to be far higher than another person. So what it all comes down to is both the balance of Eidus and Kalim. Eidus are going up, Kalim are grounding, and as well as knowing where your Eid and Kali is. Meaning to say where it should be wisely placed. So next time you talk to Mashpia, that's a way of just framing the question in a more Hasidic type of formula context of where your Ratzeh V'Shuv is. Is it misplaced? And then how much Ratzeh is going on, how much Shuv, how much Eid, how much Kali. So that's a summation of where we're up to till now. So far, as I said, the steps are, we started from, in the third interpretation of Sfiris, which is Evan Sapir, he spoke about Behirus, meaning clarity, transparency. Just to explain a little more transparency in practical terms, when you ask people, who are you? So most people give you their business card, if they have a business card. Or they start describing what they do, not who they are. It's very hard to answer who you are, because we don't even know who we are. We know very little about who we are. We know what we do. What we do on a daily basis. Who you are, you have to get into your psychology and to the unconscious and your soul and so on. So there's a real imbalance in our personal life between who you are and what you do. Now, Spheres of Atzilus don't have this problem. Just for the record, they're very functional and very healthy. Why? Because everyone knows who they are and what they do. The Kalim are what they do, and the Eidos are who you are. So if you talk about the Eid of Chesed, it's who Chesed is, the personality, the true meaning of Chesed. Chesed of Atzilus is aligned with Chesed of God, which is godliness, which is to give in a healthy way, with a healthy flow. The role of Gvura, who Gvura is God's ability to withhold or to discipline or to channel, however you want to define it. Elikim. The Keli is what it does. How does Chesed manifest? Chesed in Tzedakah in giving. Gvur is in stopping something. So you have there who you are and what you do are aligned. As soon as you go into the world of Bria, you see that starts becoming a misalignment or a disalignment or a malalignment. I'm not sure which one. You can look it up. We call dysfunctional, but it's not. It's still holy world, so it's still not the way. Don't confuse it with dysfunctionality in this world. But right now, already you have more concealment. As you have more concealment, the kalim become more dominant. What means the kalim more dominant? What you do becomes more important than who you are. Not what more important, more revealed, more obvious. And as you go further down, as the air gets more concealed, we almost don't see the neshama of something. So someone looks now, you're sitting here right now at this table, what does God want you to do today? So, we're not really sure. Because we don't have like a revealed message. So you're from Jew, you follow the Torah, halacha, Shulchan Aruch tells you. You're shliach or chassid, you follow what the Rabbi says. But generally it's all concealed. So to who you are is not so easy to discover. What you do is you end up doing whatever it is comes your way. You have to make a living, so you end up doing this, odds and ends. You have to go shopping, you have to walk, you have to eat, you have to sleep. Material life controls us. So in this world, not only the kelim, it's the levushim, as we discussed. Complete concealment controls us. So the who you are and the what you do is very far apart. Now when you start realigning it, there's 3 steps. Or more than 3, but generally 3. Spheres. First you begin by taking the quantity of your life, the number of your life, which is really the tangible, concrete things that you're doing. You can put it in the words of Yaakov. You take Avnei HaMokim, which is the scattered, fragmented pieces of this material world, and you start trying to figure out what do these numbers mean. You come to realize that there's a deeper dimension, that the number really has also quality within it. We learned this at length with Esh Shadar Kelimnes and Kol Shadar Kelimnes, to the point where you start really appreciating the quality in the things you do. Then you climb to the next story and you start realizing, 1 second, Sphira also tells a story. All these things that what I do tell a story about who I am and my purpose in life. And then you come to Behirus. Behirus is where it's totally transparent. What you do and who you are is a very thin membrane, very thin difference between Eir and Keli. Where, think of a healthy body and an unhealthy body, God forbid. In an unhealthy body, the blocks, whether it's stopping the circulation from flowing well, whether you have thick arteries that blockages in the arteries, God forbid, or your breath is not, whatever it is, health and lack of health essentially means the flow between the energy and the spirit of your neshama is not flowing through the kalim properly. Any block, whether it's a block that doesn't let you see clearly, or your nose is stuffed. From the worst problems to the biggest problems, it all comes down to that a keli and air are not aligned. Each, obviously, different containers of your body have different type of alignments. The nerves need, a pinched nerve. What's a pinched nerve? That the flow is not going through because something is pressuring it. It would be like a pipe. Someone squeezes the pipe, the water can't flow through. What's a healthy body? A healthy body is behirus. The kalim are pure channels, transparent channels for there. There's still containers. There's still a body, not an air, but it's flowing. You look at a healthy newborn child. Thank God. Everything flows. You look at a child breathing, you can literally see their chest heaving up and down. Why? Because the breath is going through, they're using all their lungs, 100% of the lungs, it's a pure flow. Until the child starts breathing in toxins, starts developing bad habits, learns from adults how to become corrupt, etc., both physically and mentally and emotionally. And what happens is the kalim begin to not be used fully. So by the time we're wherever age we are, we're not using 100% of our lungs. We're not using 100% of anything. Of our brains, that's for sure. Children, by the way, no one uses 100%, but you see their activity, the fact that they're constantly active means their brains are very active. They're constantly exploring on their level. We can sit on like a couch potato, sedentary, for hours. Essentially, a child's not capable of doing that because a child, everything is flowing. The brain is moving, the heart is moving, everything is flowing. It's a flow. I said before, like a rotze and shuv. Eir and keli are constantly in motion, basically, fluid. And as material life takes hold of us, we become less mobile. Even if you have a mobile app or a mobile device. The device is mobile, but you are not necessarily mobile.
You're tethered to the device.
Yeah. So bottom line is, I'm just giving examples how you can apply the idea of behirus. So behirus, you can imagine, is a pretty powerful level. That's total health. That means there's a very transparent, and the flow is complete. So Atzilus, of course, is complete. When Mashiach comes, it will be complete. Like he said, not only that the Ayin and Keli will be, it'll also be having Eiris Abligvul coming through these channels. So think of it like now, our mind, even if it's working at its best, is still limited amount. Imagine if the flow was complete, you'd be having a flow of creativity and higher consciousness all the time. So that's what Behirus is. And then the Behirus itself, we discussed Behirus and Kalim, there's Behirus and Eir. So obviously these are all the levels of aligning what you do with who you are. With the fullest being is who you are, not just who you are. The highest level will be not only who you are, but also your whole bligvul potential, your whole infinite potential. And then the container level. So in Aveda mitzvahs, you take a physical thing, a klaf, a piece of parchment that was once a piece of flesh, hide of an animal. You turn it into parchment. You makadesh it. You sanctify it. It becomes mezuzah, stam, tefillin, or sefer Torah. You've literally taken a physical thing and made it a keli. So it's a behirus now. When it was on the back of an animal, it was concealing the divine power it has. Now it's a piece of sefer Torah. It's holy forever. But it's still a keli that's now transparent, so to speak. That's like a healthy keli. And then there's the levels of behirus, the primis keli, when you start reaching into Torah, which is a Torah Eir, until you get even to the highest level of Torah, which is primis Torah, he calls it Torah Semnase, the levels of bligvul. But the bottom line, it's all about transparency. The contrast is our world where everything is concealed. Almost everything is concealed. And we have to begin to just first unveil the cloaks and the shrouds. So now he's going to continue on this highest level of Behirus. Where we reach now is that we went through the regular containers are reflectors, like he said, the body, the physical body, and the organs and limbs of a human being are not like garments that you wear. Garments are concealers. They protect you from the cold. They hide who you are. Your faculties reveal. That's the lowest level of Behirus, Kalim, of Atzilus, like Evorim. Okay? The next level is Primis HaKalim. Primis HaKalim, you could say, is like Evorim Primim. There's a big difference in your hand and your heart. Your heart definitely is a far greater Kali for Chayas, for life, than your arms. And he doesn't mention it, but the example would be, you're dependent on your heart for life and your brain. So you could say the mind and the heart are the two vital organs, most vital organs. It's more primis HaKalim, and therefore they also draw more primis air. There's far more air in the neshama, in the mind and in the heart than there is in your toes. Even though the life force is equal, but I'm talking about on a revelation level. So there you could say the containers are even more transparent. Then comes the two levels of Behirus he spoke about in Eir. There's the Behirus of Eir itself. Eir is an illuminator. Now we're not talking about now the Evarim. We're talking now the faculty. Compare the power of vision to the eye. So yes, the eye compared to shades or compared to physical garments that are detached is a transparent channel. But the eye compared to the power of vision is far more transparent to the soul than the physical eye is. So you see now it's a Behirus that's on a different level. And then he said there's a Behirus of the Etzem Eir, the Etzem power of vision before it manifests in your eye. And then there's the Eir that's the Ma'ala Mekalim altogether, higher than Atzilus. That was the highest level of Behirus we've discussed so far. That's already revealing, so to speak, forces that don't even manifest in the eye. Well, that would be an example. In the mind, it's easier to explain it. In the mind, you have the conscious mind at work. So that's Eir and a Keli. The brain is the Keli for the mind, and the brain itself is a very translucent organ. You know, if you look at it, it's extremely sensitive and conducive to thinking. Just like the eye is extremely conducive and tailored to seeing. Then there is you can say there's the Keichas maskil, like we learned, the power to conceive. Like, where do ideas come from? But that's still, on the level we would call love and atzmi, I would say, it's colorless, but it's still in the world of colors. It's seichel. And then we learned there was the keiches atzmim. How these faculties inside the soul, you can't even call it the root or the source of seichel. And that's the unconscious, unconscious. So you have conscious, unconscious, unconscious. And the unconscious, I would say that is the Behirus of the highest level of Eir, that is beyond containers. So that's really the steps that we've discussed. So now we'll continue Maimer 31, page 234. Reish Lamed Daled, the beginning of chapter 121. Shabbos Pasha V'Yigash Tov Terag. V'lo yochel Yosef L'Yisap. You see, this also connects it to the, we spoke of those levels in Seichel and Maskil we learned earlier. In Sfiras, just for the record, let me just say one more final thing. What I just said in the Sfiras goes like this. Malchus is primarily, Malchus in Biyah is where it's concealed. Malchus in Atzilus is primarily Kalim. Tiferes is the channel that leads it into more Eir. Chochmah is primarily Eir. And Chochmah is the interface. The Ayin of Chochmah is the Ayin of Keser. So Chochmah is the interface between Keser, which is the Eir HaBligvul. So Keser is the Eir HaBligvul. Chochmah is the Eir that's like the unconscious, so to speak. And then it comes into Kalim, all the way in Malchus. And that's the way we climb the ladder. Or in Keser itself, the two levels that we've discussed, which is similar to the two levels in Chochmah. And that's what Yaakov said. He took the stone. That's what happened with Yaakov. He took the stone, which is how it's Malchus all the way below, concealed, elevates it into a matzeva, makes a pillar out of it, pours the oil, which is, makes into a pillar, is already Tiferes. That reaches into Primis HaKeser, pours the oil, which is Chochmei Law, and then he says, V'shafti b'shalom al Beis Avi, v'hiyavayli l'elakim. So Havaya of today becomes Elakim of the future. The Havaya de l'ela is the higher revelation, higher than Chochmah that's revealed. And that's when a Matzeva has Evan Hazeh, something Matzeva becomes Yeh l'Beis Elakim. As he said, Yeh, Lashon Zachar, because Malchus will then be a Mashpia, not a Makabel. As we learned at the end of the Maimer Evan Hazeh, like the Levana that will be in the same level of the sun. Right, very good. And when Malchus becomes equal to the sun, then it says, so then there'll be a Gili of a Vayalel that's even higher than both the sun and the moon of today. He doesn't mention this, but it's also what it says, that also it says they will take the sun out of its nartek, chamim and narteka. So it's also Vayalel Elikim. So that he will no longer be the Elikim that concealed, will be a higher Havaya. I just wanted to tie up some of the Kabbalistic knots. Okay. So we learn in this parsha that Yosef can no longer control himself to those that were standing around him, meaning his brothers. So you know the story. The story is that at the end of the story, Yosef and his brothers, the confrontation. Now he's already imprisoned, also Binyamin, and then Yehuda confronts him as the Arav, as the accountable one. And when Yosef sees how Yehuda is ready to give his life for his brother, technically that's the reason, but all the different reasons, then it says, V'yachal Yosef, this Yosef, which he was basically concealing till now, who he was, his identity, now he no longer can control himself. One of the most moving verses in the Torah, that when they reunite. V'yachal Yosef l'sapik l'chol nitzav malav, to all those that were standing around them, v'yikra, hitziyu kol ish, and he told all the people to leave, meaning the Egyptians. So he and his lone, v'loi omad ish itei, and no man stood to him except him and his brothers. And that's when Yosef reveals himself. Right? Pretty dramatic moment. And remember, these are brothers who had almost killed him and sold him into slavery. So it wasn't just a nice little reunion here. We have to understand, why couldn't he control himself? At times it says, V'yisapik Yosef, that Yosef did control himself. What suddenly happened now that he couldn't control himself anymore? Because I think the Lush in the beginning, when he first meets them, it says that he didn't, that he was V'yisapik. It says Pamim, so it means, I guess, more than once. I don't remember, once, twice maybe. Okay. Gam tzarich lov mashakasav v'lo yomed ish itay. Why does it have to say v'lo yomed ish itay? Kvar nemer hitziu kol ish. He already said hitziu kol ish. Everybody should leave. So why does the Torah have to say again, V'lo yom edisha, to tell Nakilu that they listen to him? What is the addition that no one stood there with him? In the Zohar it says, V'lo yom edishita, hari hadiksiv, b'yem hashmini atzeres tiyah lachem. The Yom Ishita is referring to what it says. This is what it says. B'yem hashmini atzeres, hashmini atzeres tiyah lachem. So what does the Zohar say? That 7 days Sukkot we bring Shivim Parim for the nations. In other words, it's connected to the world. Shmini Atzeres, the Eibishter says only tiyah lachem, just me and you, ani v'ata, ni bonei nizgalgulu. That will make a suda just us, which is why it's par echad. That's the Zohar basically. So Shmini Atzeres is like Yosef telling, now everyone leave, now it's just me and you, me and my brothers. Ano umalka b'chudehi, me and the king alone. So he says, we have to understand what's the connection between Shmini Atzeres and that no person was there. The Zohar Taka connects it, but what's the deeper? It's not just Tzugit. It's not just bringing together two similar ideas. There must be a connection. Okay. Someone who came to this class told me the only thing he's understanding is these lines. So I told him that's progress. That's good, because at least you know that you have to understand something. You know, there are people who don't know they don't know, and there are people who know they don't know. So that's progress. Rabbi Leibel Posner told me once that he brought someone to the Rebbe before the Nesius. The Rebbe suggested he learn Tanya. Or actually, he asked the Rebbe, what should he learn with him? He says, learn Tanya. Fine. Learn Tanya. The guy said to Leibel Posner, I don't get what's going on here. She says, we'll talk to the Rebbe's son-in-law, the Ramash then. So they come, and he tells the Rebbe that he heard the Rebbe suggested that you should learn Tanya, but he's learning, and it's not going anywhere. He doesn't understand anything. So the Rebbe smiled and said, okay, you already made progress. And then the Rebbe added, in nicht verstehen sind wir alle gleich. The Rebbe said, in not understanding, we're all equal. The difference between us is some understand a little more, some less, but not understanding, everybody's equal. So I just thought that was interesting. So Lahavin calls the Yesh Lahagdim Tchila Mashnas Bar Le'il. Yesh Lahagdim Mashnas Bar Le'il, rather. Sometimes it does say Yesh Lahagdim Tchila. That's interesting diuk. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it says it. It's fine. It's not relevant. So as I've said many times, these pieces were added later. The Rebbe Rashab wrote from Vehine Be'emes, where the chapter begins, was a flow that goes back to the previous chapter before Al Pi Hanal. So if you really want to read it, you have to read Ze'in Abihir Sha'ir Megala, and then Vehine Be'emes Yashlemer, and then he broke it into Maimorim and into chapters later and so on. So this piece, the Heaven Yos Yesh Lahagdim, actually he wrote later, when he wrote this edition, he added these connections, which why you could find sometimes diukim here that help understand things, because he's writing at a different stage, so he's summing it up. So they're very helpful in keeping our bearings, if you have any bearings left. Right? Well, so here it goes like this. What we discussed earlier in the name Sfira, Shuloshin Sfiris Ubihirus. That's from the word illumination, brightness, shining, transparency, clarity, all the above. I don't want to miss any words. And it was explained, and this idea of illuminating and transparency was explained on the level of Kalim. We explained that in Kalim, the primary place where you see this behirus, this illumination, is in the inner containers. They don't conceal an energy because they're not a mahus achar. Let's explain. It doesn't say not a mahus achar. There's no question that the organ is a mahus achar from the faculty within it. But the pnimis hakeli, its main focus is just being a channel for the air, for the energy. So in that sense, it's not a mahus achar. It's still a keli. So it's that dimension. Like when you think of a cup. So the cup, physical cup, is obviously a separate thing. But there's an element in the container which is like its purpose. The purpose of the container is to hold water in it. Which is why in halacha, I mentioned several times, when you're meitzi eichel, pachas mekashir, if you're taking out Shabbos, a piece of food, and the food is less than the amount that is also to carry, but it's in a keli that's larger, that is a size that you're not supposed to carry, Piatera, it's not Isur Havara. Hitzah, rather. Not the prohibition. Why? Because not the physical, you're not looking at the physical, the purpose of the container. I mean, it's connected to Malacha Shein Tzrich Legufa and other different reasons. Why? Because you don't want the keli, you want the food. So then, what's the keli serve? But it's still a keli. It's still there. It doesn't disappear. Because you're focusing on the purpose of the container. The purpose of the container is to carry the food, and therefore you're not looking at the outer part. I'm just an example. So Pnimis HaKeli is almost more conceptual than it is physical. It's almost like the conceptual part of the container to be a container for the air. That's its purpose and role. I mean, we discussed it earlier, but I'm just elaborating a bit more. So that's the biggest level of Behirus. So then the Keli is almost invisible. It's not invisible if you're looking at measuring it. If you're looking at numbers, the Keli weighs and is large. Or it's like anything. When you give someone a gift, the package could be this size, the gift is this size. Right? So today, sometimes people look only at the package. But the gift is what matters, and therefore qualitatively, it's not quantity, it's quantity. It's similar to the number versus quality. The Pnimis Keli focuses on the quality, not on the quantity, essentially. Okay. So that's Behirus on the level of container. But where is the primary place of Behirus? Then you have to go to the air itself, because at the end of the day, the Keli is still a Keli. The real place, if you want to get pure quality, you got to go into the quality world. Not find within quantity quality. In other words, in the container, you're finding how it's Behirus. The real place is the air itself. Because air on its own, uncontained, unconfined in a container, is the air atzmi poshet. It's a pure energy, seamless, shapeless, like the pure color white, as we had discussed. Clear white. That's why it's fundamentally, at the core level, an illuminator. It is illumination. That's what it is. It is illumination. The container on its own is a concealer. Never then, only the thing is, a container could be conducive and you can focus on the elements of the container that are revealing. But at the end of the day, we spoke before about who you are, what you do. Your organ, even the healthiest lungs, it's still a lung. Never then, a really healthy lung is such that it's completely transparent, so to speak, and it breathes totally through and through. Or healthy veins and arteries and so on. But if you want to really Behirus, you want to know what is really illuminating, is the energy itself is the illuminating thing. Obviously, without containers, we have no access to it. And it's not in this world. But you're talking about conceptually, the purest form of purity or clarity is the thing itself. The air itself. And then came the second level that we spoke. And also that it reveals the Eir Ein Sof Shalamayla Atzilus. So two things. Because it's such an illuminating force, let's say the power to see, or the power to conceive ideas, or the power to feel, it reveals a level that's higher than the structure of Atzilus, which means what I called before the unconscious. It reveals levels that are unconscious, the levels that are higher than the structure, and reveals it Kameshahu, exactly as it is. So essentially, the clear color white, has two roles. Number one, it's the brightest color. When I say brightest, I don't mean bright as shining like red or yellow, but I mean bright as in neutral, and lets everything flow. It's clear. Let's say you have a pane of glass that's clear. That's the biggest Behirus. If you shade it with blue, green, yellow, it's already it blocks the flow. So clear transparency allows the light through. It also is, like he said, the Ayin of Chachma, which is love and Atzmi, is also allows the Bligvul to go through. Because it has bitla and has no personality of its own, it allows everything the way it is Kameshahu. Remember that Kameshahu goes two ways. The color white brings out, or the clear color, rather, the neutral color, clear white, brings out the true color of everything. If you put something red color on a blue background, you don't really know the color. You can't see the color. On a clear background, you see the color. It also reveals the other way around. Higher levels come through the way they are because it's not blocking. Like I said, the real role of a Rebbe, transparency. If you're transparent, you're not diluting or in any way shaping or coloring the flow. So that's what air does. So air itself is clear, as opposed to container, which is already a container, even the Pnimis HaKeli. And it also, because it's clear, it lets everything flow through it. It's basically total bittul. That's what it comes down to. If you want to put it in Eisis Naveda. Remember we said the Yisod of Kol Aveda is that you do it simply because that's what God wants, not because you get anything from it, not because you get closer. It's pure in the sense uncolored by anything. That uncolored creates a type of ability, that bittul, being that you're not focusing on any intention or any personal gain or anything in any way, allows everything to flow through it. Because as soon as there's something that taints it, even a kedusha, then the flow can't be complete. It can't be complete. Which is one of the reasons it says that when you daven Shani Yom Kippur, other times you say, sometimes, I think we say it like in Darkecha, or other places, that we can't always know what we need. So we say to the Eibishter, you know what we need. Tell us. Because as soon as you bring in you're already blocking the flow, and maybe you're not going to get what you really need because you decided you need something, and maybe that's not what you really need, or it's not the complete blessing. Why limit the blessing, so to speak? So there are times we have to obviously express from our kelim what we think we need, but there's also times where you want to just say that I'm empty. You give me what you think I need to have. That's basically total bittul. Then the flow is also complete, which is also plenty of lessons in life as well around that, right? What you ask for. Maybe it's time, sometimes it's best not to shape and just let it come through. Look, there were people stood by the Rebbe. The Rebbe somebody once came to the Rebbe and said to the Rebbe he wants to do a certain thing. He wants a blessing. And the Rebbe said to him, you want a blessing or you want my advice also? So he said, well, if the Rebbe wants to give advice, of course, he's not going to not take the Rebbe's advice. So the Rebbe said, I'll give you my advice, because remember, a blessing with my advice is always a better blessing than a blessing without my advice. So his advice was that he shouldn't do it, what he wanted. So that's not what the guy wanted. He wanted to do it and have the blessing. So I heard from another person, and personally, directly, he was looking to change his job. And he wrote to the Rebbe 3 times, 4 times, he was not getting an answer. And he asked the secretary, he says, what should I do? Can you, maybe it got lost along. He says, no, it's sitting on the Rebbe doesn't not answering, it's quite intentional. So we know, but Chassidim and not answer is also an answer. But he had, this guy actually had access to the Rebbetzin. So he went to the Rebbetzin, Chaim Mushka, and said, spoken to him, he said, maybe you can use your influence to get an answer from the Rebbe for me. So she smiled, she said, if an opportunity arises, I'll try to see what I can do. And when I said he was close to her personally, since he was a child. So anyway, I think a day or 2 later, he comes back to her, and he comes to her, and she says that, I had the opportunity to speak with my husband, and he said to me that tell him that if he listens to what I say, I'll answer him. Yeah. That was the Rebbe's sense from the letter that the guy told me directly the story. So he said to the Rebbe, of course that's why I wrote to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, think about what my husband said before you jump. So he thought about it. And he realized, it's probably, in his notes, he was clearly leaning in one direction, and the Rebbe probably saw that it's going to be an assignment for him so better don't answer, so doesn't have to not listen to me. The Rebbe was basically saying. And then, so he wrote into the Rebbe that he had written this letter several times. He wants to tell the Rebbe that whatever the Rebbe says, he's absolutely going to do. So then he got an answer within a few hours, and the Rebbe said not to change jobs. He wanted to go into contracting, I think. And he told me even after that, he still had an assignment. He obviously listened at this point. But he realized that had the Rebbe Ataka answered, it wouldn't have been. He would say the Rebbe maybe didn't understand what I meant, and he's right. Another letter, how it goes. So what's the difference? The difference is when you go in, you can get a bracha for sure, because the Rebbe gives a bracha. He's not going to give you a bracha. He doesn't want to give you a bracha. That's a given. The question is, how much is it the Rebbe's? How much it's you, and how much is the Rebbe's bracha? Or is it uncolored completely, where someone comes in and says to the Rebbe, "Listen, Rebbe, tell me what you want me to do. Whatever you say, that's what I'll do." I'm just giving some examples of behirus of kelim, behirus of eres. Or now, obviously, when it's uncolored in that type of way, complete bittul, also the flow of the bligvul, that's what he's saying here, also comes through. וגם שמגל שאיר אין של מעל מאציל בכנס גילי כמי שהוא. והוא עניין הגילי דלעשית. And that's the revelation that will come in the future. She'agili havaya delatata b'chinas elikim. That will be the gili of havaya delatata will be in the state of elikim. Meaning, what is elikim, what is havaya today will become elikim that was elikim today. And through that elikim, meaning the havaya of today, will be now revelation of a higher level. B'chinas gili mamish. It comes through elikim, so it's literally contained in elikim. But now it's complete revelation because it's not an Elikim that conceals, it's an Elikim that reveals. It's an Eir that's revealing an Eir HaBlikvul, basically. So you could say Elikim today is Kalim. Elikim Lasilavi is Eir HaGvul, which is Havaya today. And Havaya Leil is the Eir HaBlikvul. So now you have Eir is also a transparent channel, Behirus, of Havaya Leil. And of course, Losad Lovi, that's when it will be full manifestation. Good. So now we continue. Now, in truth, what we could say, the Ikarin Yisvirus Virus Madrei Shalamayla Atzilus. So you see how he's climbing the ladder here. First it began, Behirus was Kalim compared to Levushin. Then it became Pnimis HaKalim. He said the Ikar is in Pnimis HaKalim compared to the regular Chetzenis HaKalim. Then he said the real Behirus is an Eir. And now he's saying the real Behirus is the Eir that's Lifnei. You already see the Svirus emerging in Igulim as he began? See, the real thing is because we have understood the answer without all this. And the answer is no, you can't. Because, not just because Seichel, because you got to climb these steps. You can't get to Blikvul if you don't go through, if you don't have Bittul. And you can have bittul if you don't go through the kalim. So someone just say, I'm bottled b'mitzias. Yeah, my friend, you got kalim to deal with. Tell me what you're doing with your baggage before you say such bittul.
The doctor can't get to Atzilus before.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, exactly right.
Is it definitely not colored? He wants to get to bittul because he wants to have the bleak wool. That's not called colored?
You see, your consistent questions is what they used to call the distinction between a Polish chassid and a regular chassid. The answer is no. For someone who's doing it for that reason, they will not get blikvul. That's correct. What you just said, they won't get the real thing. They'll get a colored version of it. They'll get a colored version of it.
So just about so why are they doing it?
Because they want something. Because they're for their shlemus.
I'm asking if the thing that they want. Not called colored.
That's called colored. I just said yes, it's called colored, and they won't get the real thing as a result. You don't hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
my answer.
So why do they want the real thing?
They don't want the real thing. They want what they want. They don't want the real thing. If they wanted the real thing, they wouldn't make this condition. Someone who wants the real thing is let's go. Doesn't ask for it.
Okay.
As soon as if you want it too much, it means it's you, not the thing. That's the bottom line. When Moshe Rabbeinu said he wants to see God's face, God said, you can't see my face. And then the Gemara says, God says, when I wanted to show it to you, you didn't want to look. And now that you want it, I'm not going to show it to you. Why? Because when you want it, it's you. It's no longer God. That's what I said. Two people come stand in front of the Rebbe. One says, here's what I want. I want you, the Rebbe. I want your whole etzem. But I want it on my terms. What do you think you're going to get? You're going to get your terms, not the etzem. Or someone else says, I don't want anything. Give me whatever you want to give me. That's the difference. The second one is not so easy. You have to have a lot of courage because you see, insecure people feel if they don't have their interest involved, then they're going to disappear. But a secure person can say, hey, listen, I've got nothing, you give me whatever you want to give me. That's the difference between people. Most people don't have the security, the courage to be vulnerable. Let's put it that way. You understand? Because we protect ourselves. As soon as one protects themselves, they always have colors. People don't protect themselves. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, because a lot of people, that's why I wouldn't suggest that someone just goes into the Rebbe. If you want to be that vulnerable, you better be ready to be. Most people can't do that. Most people have interest. So you have to work. That's why Chassidim maybe worked 6 years or 3 years or 1 year before they went to see a Rebbe. Why? Why don't they just go in and pour out their heart and say, I want this, I have children and this. Because they realize you're going out to see the truth. Now, everyone used the Rebbe for what they wanted to use him. The Rebbe told my father once. My father asked the Rebbe, the Rebbe once said to my father, twice he said this. He says, you're a journalist, so if you want, you can do an interview with me. So my father, both times when he was told this, he said to the Rebbe, can I ask anything? So the Rebbe said, yeah, that's a journalist, yeah, there's no censorship. So my father asked the Rebbe once, he said to him, what bothers the Rebbe most? But that's what you would ask. You'd probably ask, when's Mashiach going to come, right? Right, there you go. And you'd get, guaranteed, an answer. And like I said, you'd get what you want, then you'd get what you want. You wouldn't get the Rebbe's answer. You'd get, It would be interesting. If you ask the Rebbe when Mashiach is going to come, I guarantee you he would not answer. He would say to you, I'll tell you what you can do to make him come. You do that, then he'll come right now. That's what the Rebbe would say. And people would not like that answer. Because you want the magic trick. You want the pill, right? You want to say. So he answered my father with a story. He says, I'll tell him a story. He said there was once a mashal. He says they say this mashal about a man who, like a Iyuv, who had blessed with everything, and then there was a Lamayla. They said, okay, yeah, he's very good, God-fearing, as long as he has everything. Take away, we'll see how much amun he has, how much Yiras Shamayim. So yeah, that's what happened. They took away his wealth, and then they took away his family, and they took away his health. Finally, the only thing left was his body. He would have nothing left. And then they struck him with leprosy. Tzadas, that's what the Rebbe said. A terrible scratch. He was itching all over. Finally, there was Rahmanas from heaven. So they said to him, the Gabaskel said to him, that give him one request, whatever he wants, he could have. At that moment, the Rebbe said, he had to give Ferel Chikratz of the plates. That's what the Rebbe said. He had a terrible scratch on his back. That moment when they gave him ask anything. So the scratch was so terrible, he couldn't reach it. So he said, give me a sherbel. That's what the Rebbe said. Give me a shard to be able to reach and scratch my back. So he used his Eisrat, he used his opportunity. So the Rebbe said, what bothers me is when people ask me for back scratchers, when they could ask for much more. That's what the Rebbe said. Wow. Interesting answer, huh?
Wow. You published it?
He probably wrote it up. I don't remember, but I remember the story very vividly when he told it to us. So this is colored. When you get colored, you get what you ask for, basically. And if you ask for and say, listen, I don't know what I want, just give me it all, bli gvul, you're probably going to get bli gvul. So you want colored bli gvul. Ich verstehe. So
I want to know what prompts somebody to want bli gvul.
Nobody wants bli gvul. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it.
What prompts someone to want that? That's what I'm asking.
Du verbring mit dem. This guy's unbelievable. Mashkes behiris in Kalim. Ich red behiris in Eir. No. Behiris. I got it. Mashkes behiris in Kalim. Efshe primis Kalim. Fine, we'll give it to you. Aber es nicht behiris Eir. Right? You know how I know? Because it doesn't last.
And he doesn't know what he wants. How can he know something he doesn't know what he wants?
I told you.
That's the question. Why would someone not ask for a sherbel? Because that's.
What can I tell you? I don't know what to tell you.
I think we all ask for a sherbel.
You all have the same question?
I think we all. It's not a question even. That's the reality. We ask for a sherbel. That's the Rebbe told you. Most people ask.
Okay, so just acknowledge that. Fine. If you want to say that, good. But by contrast, you can understand.
Why would someone even think not to ask for a sherbel?
I understand that's what he's saying. You heard what he said to you? That means that
losing his house or something. You like that, you this, and you want.
I guess when you're desperate, when your back is scratching.
I'll take it a step further. Let's say you have it all. Why would you want to go to that? What motivates you to go to a place that you don't know where you're going? And what do you want? In other words, you're saying, in other words, you don't know what's around the corner. What does that mean? Define.
Talking about leaving the conflict.
Listen.
Define what that means. And you say you don't know what it means because once you know what it means, there's a reason why you want to go there.
All I can do is give you I don't have answers for you. I can give you a bracha if you want.
Okay, I'll take that too.
My bracha to you is. Huh?
Yesterday
It's Isra Chag. It's Isra Chag. My bracha to you is that you learn enough Chassidus, you'll start understanding that you don't always ask the question why. You're asking why. You make it like why is some type of God, some type of Avodah Zarah that you need a why. Who says you need a why? Who told you need whys? When you have a taiva, you also ask why you have a taiva. You just follow it.
That's my point. I don't understand.
Did you hear what I just said to you?
Yes.
So there's a lot of things there's no why in your life. Suddenly here you need a why to reach Bli Gvul. Why? Because it's not your comfort zone. When it comes to deine Sachen, you don't ask why you need this. You need it, and then you figure out how. I just saw that a letter to Shalom Posner. So he writes to the Rebbe that he's standing on a side and not getting involved. It looked like in some pool and he puts him in a Sechel Chutza. So the Rebbe writes back to him, he says, you may think I didn't notice that you wrote that line, that you're standing on a side, but let me tell you, I want to ask you if you also stand on the side when it comes to your tzarchei aguf. When it comes to your physical needs, you also stand on the side. No one asks why when it comes to zich. They only ask why in things that are beyond. So I'm giving you a bracha that you should be able to learn, to be able to not ask why on Lakuz. That's what Chassidus tries to teach us. It's a bracha to all of us. You're basically asking the same question almost 7 billion people on this earth ask. If I don't have self-interest, why should I do it? If I don't gain anything from it, why should I be involved? That's a very legitimate question when you go into business. What's in it for me? But when you learn Elikut, you come to a point that the me is not the ikar. Now, much more can I say about that? By you, the me is the ikar. Not just by you, by millions of people, billions of people. I also have my issues. We part. What do you mean we part? You don't accept the statement.
I do accept the statement.
So what do you mean we part? What are you trying to say?
At one point, let me say, because
you keep saying the same thing every time.
The thing that you wanted is also for a reason.
No, there's no reason. It's not true.
No, one second. But there is nicht to say.
But I don't have this question that he has.
Okay.
That's the difference. That's why I gave him a bracha. He should understand why. He's saying this is the way everybody is, and I'm saying it's not the way you have to be. There's a major difference what we're saying. I don't ask this question. To me, it's a davar poshet. No, not the real behirus of it. It's not true. You want to start? I told you le'elim yasik adam b'teira mitzvah shalei l'shma. Fine. So start with shalei l'shma. Ask for what you do for your personal interest, and hopefully you'll grow. Fine. So then there's no so there's no question. So do that. So ask for your sherbel.
That's the only way.
I think we learn this. No, it's not true. I don't think it's the only way. That's why you learn Chassidus. Why would you learn Chassidus if that's the only way? Why do we learn this? In my opinion, why did Rebbe Rashab spend thousands of hours writing this if it's not reachable?
I personally love it.
No, I asked you a question. If it's not reachable, why did he? But you didn't answer my question. Yeah. If it's not reachable, why did he write it?
It is reachable.
Okay. So what are you saying? So that's what we have to work towards.
But even before it's reachable, it's also pleasant and it's happy.
No, I understand that. No, but that's not why he wrote it, to make it pleasant and happy. And I'm talking about it's reachable. And as long as people ask questions that it's not reachable, they'll never get it. Unless you believe it's reachable, don't go there.
I can see why when you want to do the cool, there's no reason there. Even for no reason, there's a reason.
Who told you such a thing? I keep telling you. I gave you a bracha that you'll come to understand one day. That I told you when it comes to the Eigen and Taivas, there's no reason. You just have a Taiva. It wakes up and you are Taiva. You don't ask reasons. You do it even without a reason. Why don't you accept that? What I just said. So why you give me reasons? Why? There's a thing.
Is that what you're saying?
No. I just gave you an example of that you keep asking reason. All your Taivas you do have no reason.
I mean, is a color. If you want to do something, in other words, you're saying that there's one point where there's no color, it's a straight years, and you're doing it for there must be a reason. There must be.
The answer is no. This must be a reason. Is your own imagination. It's not true.
That's what I'm asking.
I just told you. So don't tell me where. I keep telling you. There's no. Yes. There must be a reason. That must be a reason is your colors.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
I accept it. I don't understand it.
Reason was created by God. Since when the reasons? I asked you a question. Can you give me a list of things? How many things you do with a reason? I would say 99% of your choices are without a reason. Sure. So why suddenly you bring reason? Why is it so important to your reason? You know why? Because God is not your interest, and your interest controls your life. That's why.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of what you do is reason.
Okay. I hear you.
We worship reason because we don't worship reason. We actually don't things with reason. When it comes to something that doesn't fit in, we say, "Give me a reason why." Now. Hopefully when you learn Chassidus enough, you come to understand what is reality. Is it more important you, or is it important something higher than you? Let me ask you, when a Jew stood and was asked, and no one was around, no one was watching him. Either you buksich to this Avodah Zarah, or we kill you. And no one will know if you do it. We're not going to announce it. Why did some people allow themselves to be killed? The most basic principle is self-preservation. In Russia, there were Jews that were tortured, and as a result became Muslim. Many more than we'd like to admit. Even people we know.
That's true.
Because when you're tortured, it brings out... There are people today who will never think possible they would ever eat human meat. Put them in a snowstorm, and there's no food, and they get hungry. They can start eating each other. So the question is, no one should ever be tested. But what do you think would happen if you were in that situation? Why is one person ready to die before he would hurt somebody else? And most others wouldn't. Are they born this way? And that's clear. That's real black and white. You're either going to die, or you're going to bow to the Avodah Zarah. No one's going to know. You come home, everyone can think you're a big hero and say, I didn't bow, they let me go. You could lie. Right? So I'm saying, why would a person die? What does he get from it? Nothing. I'm not talking about a cult guy, a stupid, blind faith. I'm talking about a sophisticated person. So what's he? So you could say, you know what he gets? He's going to get Elam Haba in his mind. So he has an interest. Okay, maybe some people like that. But still, I think people don't give their lives away so fast. Chassidus says that true Mesiras Nefesh is without a reason. It's just because he realizes that there's a reality greater than him. It's not about me. It's not because I'm going to get something, I'll be more me. It's because me doesn't matter. And other things matter more. Now, I know parents, as sad as it sounds, when it came to a choice between them and their child, they chose themselves and not their child. Even though we always like to hear the other side of the story. Because their me was more important than anything else, even their own child. Their parents who hurt their children. So I'm using extreme examples of death and the Mesiras Nefesh. But on a subtle level, this is every day. Are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for your child? Most parents I know, it's more for them than for their children, as much as they love their children, because they're insecure. And they impose on their children their own stuff. And even for their own, I always wondered what it meant in Parsha Keser that a mother will eat her own child. That's what it says, right? I see it today, every day, psychologically, not physically. Mothers eat their children, psychologically, they destroy them, basically. The guy that's sitting in the three women.
Consume them.
Yeah, right, exactly. They consume them, whatever the reason is. So, the bottom line is, you asked if it's reachable. That's a different question. The answer is it has to be reachable, or else we wouldn't learn this. The answer why, he's basically saying it's not real. Why would someone do it? The answer is there's no why when it comes to these things. You come to learn that Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, God also had a taiva, and if a taiva is stuck in kasha, there's no why. Why itself was created by God. And there are things we do that are without reason that are shtuz the klipa, and they're shtuz the kedusha. Most things we do without reason have to do with our own personal taivas. And we don't ask why, we just follow it because it gives me pleasure or whatever. Or it could be even not even pleasure. And then there's doing things that are beyond reason because that's what it is. You come to realize that, I guess. And you have to distinguish it from childish blind faith. It's a sophisticated coming to understand that what reality is higher than our reality. I don't think you can really know who has it in them unless they're tested, really. Because everyone can talk, we could all talk. That's why I said there were people who actually did not masa in others. And they're ready to die before that. That's a very big thing. Because no one would know. Look, Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai said to his own students on his deathbed, Halavai, she made a Shamayim Aleichem Kamedi Basar V'Dam. This is Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai's students. They're pretty high level. That they should fear God as much as they fear people. What does it mean? That for other people they would do certain things. God is invisible, so we don't. So even they needed. I didn't say it's not a madrega. But the closest thing we have to this is a bittul Rebbe. That when Chassid just listens to Rebbe blindly, you have a little taste of this. Maybe that's why there's a Rabbeim in the later generations, and they weren't there in the earlier generations. Because we don't have that type of on our own, and maybe with a Rebbe that you trust and you see as a tzaddik, by having that dedication, maybe helps bring out that part in us. Maybe Yeshem.
Regular guys didn't do it in those days.
There was always Nasim and so on, but the Nasi of Rav Bezdin in the time of, let's say, Shas, was not was the concept of Rebbe always existed, Moshe Rebbe, but not a Rebbe the way we understand it, like in that type of sense, from the Baal Shem Tov time on. I mean, Yechidim had it. I'm sure all the tzaddikim and Storim always had their Rebbe, but the public generally had a Rav. They had an authority, but it wasn't that type of Bittul Tarov. Was not like the Bittul Rebbe. So maybe that's the reason.
Even in the last.
The Kedusha, I'm saying it in the positive. Well, the Baal Rebbe was an unbelievable Talmid Chacham, but he had a Rebbe, and he was bottled to his Rebbe. That concept of Bittul, and every Rebbe had a Rebbe before him. There's no one just became a Gadol.
The story, the answer that the Rebbe gave, is it a medrash?
About the Sherbel?
Yeah.
I never saw it. I said it's al derech the story of Eve. Yeah. It's not the story of Eve. No, the Rebbe just uses it as a mashal. Look, I remember when I was teaching Beis Sifka, there were two girls came to me in 12th grade. They both had written to the Rebbe, and they got two different answers. They both were offered to go on seminary in Australia. Australia. And this is years ago, 15 years ago maybe. And, no, it can't be 15. At least it's already, we're talking 20 years since that. 25 years ago. Oh man, time flies. I wish it was 15 years.
It was my last 10 years.
Yeah. And one of them got an answer from the Rebbe to go, the whole bracha. The other one got an answer to ask her parents. So they came to me, they wanted to know if Al Pi Kabbalah or something, the neshamas come from different shirashim, why the Rebbe would answer one like this. I said, with all due respect, if they don't mind if I see what they wrote to the Rebbe. So they showed me, no problem. I look at two notes, two different notes, very different. And you see right away the story that my father. One girl wrote to the Rebbe, she really looks forward to this new challenge, a new country, bring chassidus there, meet new people, make a kiddush Hashem, a kiddush Labav. She took on the whole challenge. And the other girl wrote the following, that she has this offer to go to Australia. It's a different country, different language, different culture. She's different food. She's going to be away from her parents, away from her brothers and sisters. Basically, will she have all her teddy bears? I mean, she didn't use that. You get the idea. So tell me, what do you think the Rebbe answered each one of them? You don't need no Kabbalah for this. The one that wrote like an adult got an answer for an adult. The one that wrote like a child got an answer. What you tell a child, go to your parents. Simple as that. It's not such a chacham law. Basic common sense. So it all comes down how you write. It has all to do with how you, I can show you hundreds of examples. I've seen it Begashmis. All what you write. You give the Rebbe, you bring the Rebbe a cup with a little liquid in it, water. He'll pour a little more. You fill up the cup, it'll pour over. It all comes down what you bring to the table. The Rebbe said it in hundreds of sikhs. The first Rebbe, Yud Shvat, the first official, he said, at the end after the Maimer, he said, don't convince yourself I'm going to do your job for you. The Rebbe said, I don't decline from helping, but each one of you has your job, and I will meet you halfway, basically. The principle of the Rebbe's whole of everything. All the people that tell you that the Rebbe took me and sent me here, sent me there, I'd like you to. I have not found one case like that. Even from the first shluchim, the Rebbe did not take Rabbi Gershom Engraved and told him to go to Italy. He wrote to the Rebbe a few choices, and one of them was that. And the same thing with almost everybody. There are instances where the Rebbe told a shliach or something, go do something, or if you came and said to the Rebbe, I want.
There's one example.
What do you mean, sending the Bachram to Australia?
No, grown.
Groner was in Buffalo first. He didn't start with Australia. But there was a request from Australia. It wasn't so simple. The Chassidim there wanted a Rav. It always started with, I'm not taking away because the Rebbe didn't work that way. He was not going to command anyone to do anything. He was going to tell you what I want. And then you have to be wise enough to figure it out. The Rebbe did not want to, first of all, put anyone in a sign that I'm telling you to do it and then not do it. That's the Rebbe style throughout. You're going to give me one exception, two, maybe you'll find. But it's definitely not consistent. Everywhere you had to mobilize yourself, then the Rebbe came and met you halfway. I know, I've heard many people tell me all kinds of things the Rebbe told them this. You start digging, you find out, you told the Rebbe two options, so he told you that. It would never started out, I'm here, you tell me what you want.
What are we supposed to do with this generation?
We spoke yesterday about the nitzchis of a Rebbe, here, atzmis of a Rebbe. There's no question, you can find a way to get your answers. Harbe drachim l'makim. As I said, it could be the oil, it could be Iglis, it could be a taxi driver. To me, they're all God's messengers. Really. If you're a believer, why not? You could ask yourself a question, go into a cab, and say to the cab driver, hey, what do you think about this? That may be the answer. Why not? I'm not gonna. Don't quote me in advocating. No, I understand.
Maybe I would.
Okay, so we continue on. So now he says, "V'hine be'emes yashlem et ikin yisviris be'emes v'madreg shalamayel Atzilus." That the main primary behira is now he's saying in the higher levels that are higher than Atzilus. Hey mitzad b'chinas hakelim v'hei mitzad b'chinas eres. Both from the perspective of the containers and from the perspective of the energies. Because remember, we spoke that it works like this. It's not like the kelim let go. The kelim bring you to the air, and then they go back. Then they are shed, and you just now travel alone in air. It's the kelim become elevated to be refined enough to be channeled in the air. Then the air starts bringing in higher energies into the picture. Okay. So the hine bechinas hakelim. How do you do with the kelim? That's saying kamoshel esi saksav. Now he's starting with the containers. From the level of containers, it's known that the containers of Atzilus are an example. Are like for example the letters, written letters. V'hakelim shebe Keser, and the kelim of Keser hen kamoshel esi sachkika. The kelim of Keser are like the letters of esi sachkika. So where do we have these words before? On page Reish Vav. If you remember, he spoke that Asis HaKeser, Asis Kelim Keser is Asis HaKika, and the Asis was right in the beginning of the whole topic of Lavan and Yaakov. That's why Asis HaKika is from the same material. It's from the stone itself. Asis HaKsav is an additional thing that you're writing on it. So in Kelim itself, you have two types of letters. Talk about letters. You have letters that are engraved and they're part of the thing itself. There's letters that come from outside that are additional elements. So that's the difference in Kelim of Atzilus and Kelim. He spoke about the Parsa, that according to the Pirish that Lovan is higher than Atzilus, so the Parsa then is Keser, between Keser and Atzilus. So there, the Parsa, the veil, the curtain, is take like a chida, like a riddle, disorganized letters, but it's letters from the same material. It's not separate muhus. Once you get into Atzilus, then you're talking about Esis Aksav, letters that are written letters.
Bringing examples from the same meaning, right? Bringing Mishalim from
that would be like Mishalim in the same subject matter, and one is Mishalim from a strange subject matter. But they're both examples. They're both concealment, but one is a concealment from within that same topic, and one is completely different. We spoke about it then. In other words, you can bring an example from a completely foreign world in order to relate to the person, or you can bring an example in that same world, an example to explain it. That's one place. Then he also said, if I recall, it's all going back to that, I see. Kerik Tzadi Gimel, I think. Let me see something here. On the top here. Okay, maybe not. I have to look for it. Just want to see one thing. What did it just? No, I'm sorry. Not Tzadi Gimel. Chapter Kufay, Reish Gimel. So on top there, yeah. You see there too? Moshel Kerch Sanev Shal B'chinas Gimel Di'in Halam Shalom Rezer. Move Mokros Shal B'chinas Kelim Shek B'Keser or Kelim Datzilus Mashal Malimim Ala Er. Okay. It says Petim Sakelim V'Chetzein Sakelim. You see? 5 lines from the top. Just referring because I think he's going back to this now. See? Okay. Good. So he's saying, so in Kalim there's also two levels. Remember, Kalim here are Asius, because Asius are the Avonim of Yaakov. So there's two levels itself. So what's the Vahefresh B'Neim Hu? So what's it? Kalim Shebekesen and Kamoshel Asius Achkika. I like the example of engraved letters. Vahefresh B'Neim, the difference between them is this. Yedua the Beis Aksav Hariyadiyeh Hu Davar B'Fnei Atzmi Ma'Klaf U'Mechas Alav. It's known that in written letters, the ink is a separate thing from the parchment, and it conceals it. When you write ink on a parchment, you're concealing that part of the parchment where the ink is. That's what the letter entails. And even though through the writing you're revealing, the parchment before was just blank, now you're revealing letters, and he says in the parentheses, he's bringing now in the dinim of Safrus, like this, the scribe. The revelation of the letters is from the klaf, so it's not just from the ink. When you write a letter, it cannot be attached letters. It has to be surrounded by empty space from the klaf. So it says en gvil mukafla, kolish en gvil, meaning it's boundaries.
Gvil is the clock.
She'en gvil mukafla, yeah, that the parchment around it is not surrounding it from Dal Ruch from all four directions. Psula is invalidated. How do you move mezesha eshu ma'klav dafka? So we see from this that the letter is specifically from the klaf. Why? Because why does it matter? That's why you need to have the parchment surrounds it. Why? Who cares if it's attached? The message is there. If you write Anoichi, Aleph Nun Chaf Yud, let's say the four letters are attached, but you can read it. As long as you can read it. Because besides the letter should be written clearly, it's also a letter on klaf. And the klaf has it's like what they say in design, that the white space is as important as the black space. In design, it's not just the shape of the letter, but also how much white space is around it. In reading well, besides the fact if you had letters attached it would be hard to read, but more importantly, basically means that the letters that are written in the klaf have two elements. There's the ink that's writing the letter, but it's also the klaf that's defining the boundary of the word, or the letter. That's what he's saying. So l'cheda then it's a question, that's revealing then. So why are you saying it's concealing? Like he said earlier. Yes, it's revealing letters, but it's through concealing something else. Because the place where around the letter you see parchment, but under the letter you don't see the parchment anymore. Now you see a color, black ink. So yes, there's a revelation, but it's through a concealment, basically.
It's focusing on the cloth, not on the ink.
Yeah, the gvil mukuf is
concealing the cloth. That's the revelation of the letters. That's what I'm saying, basically.
Mashenken Eishis Achkika, contrast, engraved letters, Ein Dover B'fnei Atzmi, they're not separate. Heima Even Tev Atzmi. They're from the Even Tev, the precious stone itself. You could say, why did he say Even Tev? Why not Even? Because he's talking Even Sapir, Sampirin, the Luchas, etc. So when you engrave it in Even Tev, even a regular Even, you're not adding ink. What you're doing is, you're taking the stone and you're cutting out from the stone. You're etching it in the stone. So it's from the stone itself. Nothing is, there's no foreign entity. What's the dugma mizeh? The dugma mizeh, lamaila, the example of this above is the kelim shabat Atzilus and kimhus achal ma'ir. The containers of Atzilus are like a separate personality from the Eir. Only thing is they're not estranged, they're not zor, they're not a strange personality, meaning something outside of the realm of Kedusha, let's say. The containers of Biyah, the containers of Biyah are a completely different thing that are not from the Inyan of Atzilus. I know this may wonder the question we said. Here it seems like the mashal is from the same Inyan. So clearly there's a third level. I'll get back to that. Because then he spoke earlier about the pastor was a mashal. Now it seems like this, that in Atzilus, the Kelim are aligned, they're of the same idea as the Eir, except they're a separate entity. In Biyah, it's like actually using a mashal zar, a strange example. Let's say if you gave an example from fire, you give an example from fire to understand ruchnis. That's a mashal zar, because ruchnis and fire are not the same thing. That's in Biyah. If you gave a mashal of fire and say that fire is there's the energy of fire and there's the manifestation of fire, that would be more like the kelim of Atzilus. So manifestation is definitely a separate entity, but it's from the same subject. It's not an example from the. No, it's in Ruchnis itself. You're giving, so to speak, is the kelim. I need to give more examples for this, but let's just see where he's going with this. The containers of Atzilus are still Atzilus. Nevertheless, they are separate personality compared to the air. Based on the example I gave before, it's very simple. Energy is energy. A container is a container. In Atzilus, in Biyah, a container can be a light bulb. Compared to energy, it's pretty distant. In Atzilus, a container is not a light bulb. In Atzilus, the container is the personality of Chesed. Chesed, as I explained, the expression of Chesed. But the energy of Chesed, the air of Chesed, is God's wish to, to flow. So you're not talking here a container in the sense like a physical container to an energy. You're talking here a conceptual container. So therefore they're closer. But it's still but still it's a different personality than from the energy. And that's why the core energy does not manifest in the containers. The containers therefore cover and conceal on the energy. You know what the best example actually? What am I going for? We could use the example that he used before. In Biyah, the kelim are like levushim, like the detached garments. That's a davar zar. The kelim of Atzilus are like evorim, like the body limbs. So the limbs and organs are not. It's not exactly, but al derech zeh. They're not the energy, the faculties within them, but they are attached to them, and they're of the same personality, so to speak. It's not an exact example because at the end of the day, the physical limbs and organs are more similar to clothing in the physical side than they are to faculties. If you know what I'm saying. But on one side of it, there is a similarity, so it's not a perfect example. But we need to find the right examples for it. I'm trying to find an example that works. You need it both to be. You know what? No, I have an idea. You know what? It's not the evorim. It's the faculties. The kayach hariyah, the power to see, to the nefesh, which is Atzilus, is like the kelim of Atzilus to the Atzilus, to the air, and the biyah would be the evorim. That's a better example. That's a little more fitting. But you see how far we are from this. Yeah. Okay, fine. What time is it, by the way?
It's 25.
Okay. So bottom line is mele ein etzem. So what happens? Ein etzem er mislabish in the faculty. In this example I just gave, ein er mislabishim. Va'kelim mechasim malim ala er. The power of vision, yes, reveals as it goes into the eye, like the letters on the ink on parchment, but it's concealing the deeper parts of the soul. This is in general the way it is in containers, even the pnimis, also the pnimius of them. This is even true about the pnimis hakelim, that, as we explained in chapter 116, that's where the container is similar to the energy. Nevertheless, it's a container. He gave the example of the eye there. The translucent eye is a very transparent channel for the power to see. Why? He says because the primus hakeli has an element to it that's very much like the eir itself. So even that level is still a concealer. That's the bottom line. So it's like asis haksav, like the additional ink that's added.
Asis haksav is like biyah or is like Atzilus?
Atzilus.
Compared to Keser.
Yeah, compared to higher than Atzilus. Yeah. In other words, but in Atzilus there's a cloud that surrounds it, because what dominates, like with the faculties, is the soul's power, not not the keli. It's a keli, but it's yeah. And in biyah, it's already now you're dealing with like biyah would basically be the example, not diel aklaf, would be ink on just a regular piece of paper, or even worse than that, words, printed words. They can be on top of each other. In other words, the letters are more dominant than the energy. See, klaf and letters on the klaf are still part of the Sefer Torah. There's a certain what dominates there is that it's a Sefer Torah, even though they're letters. I'm just throwing that in. Okay, so this is u'k'moi bihirus haschuchish b'dema lebihirus eir hashemesh, like the clarity of a glass, a window. A window's at the E or matter, right? Schuchis is more glass. Shibedema, it's similar to the Behirus Eir, to the clarity and the brilliance and the brightness of light, Eir HaShemesh, of the light of the sun. Like the Behirus, like the clarity of the physical eye, that is similar to the power of the light within the eye. Nevertheless, so both these examples, there's a keli. When you look at a glass, you look out through a window, a clear window, you see the sunlight, almost as you see sunlight itself. But can you say that the glass is like seeing sunlight itself, as the light itself? No, it's one step below, because it's now coming through some type of filter, except it's a transparent filter. That's the example he's giving now. Same thing with the eye. The physical eye lets the light of vision to shine through, but the brightness of the light of vision is still a step above than the container, even though this is a Pnimis HaKelim. These are examples of Pnimis HaKelim.
But you're still saying Atzilus Kelim to dominate, and yet it's Eidol Kelim.
We didn't speak about dominance. We're just talking about they both there. Er and Keli exist in Atzilus, and there's distinguished between them. Even if the Kelim dominate in Malchus, they're still transparent. Correct. Yeah, that's a correct statement. That they're transparent. In Biyah, they're no longer transparent. They're already now colored. The truth is, compared to Chachma, even the spheres are colored. But it's talking about Pnimis HaKelim. So Pnimis HaKelim are more transparent. Essentially, Pnimis HaKelim is like the color white in the levels of the Kelim. Except in Chachma, it's much stronger. 1 second, so. Kim rak behiras hachem levad. Because it's not the behiras, what you're experiencing is not the brightness and the transparency of the light itself, the energy itself. You're experiencing the brightness and transparency of the chemer that happens to be transparent. So it's a transparent piece of matter. That's the key here. I got it. So matter and energy, but you could have matter that blocks. You could have matter that's transparent. A perfect example, we talked about superconductivity. They're looking for superconductive materials. What's conductivity? When heat or electricity or energy. So the best conductor that we use today is usually copper or brass. Copper. Gold is even a better conductor, but it's too soft. It can't be turned into wires. Silver is a very bad conductor. What's a conductor? A conductor means a piece of matter that is very conducive, that doesn't put up a lot of resistance and allowing it to flow through. Like, for example, try to use a piece of metal to light a flame, it's not going to work. Wood, a wick, is conducive containers. Everything needs a container. The more coarse the container doesn't fit the energy that flows, the more it's going to block, the more resistance. One of the big things they had to accomplish when they created microchips, which is microprocessors and chips in computers, was to create materials that can allow so much energy to flow through. If you don't have the material, it'll burn up. That's why it's made of certain different type of synthetic or whatever stuff. So superconductivity, where there's zero resistance. I think with copper it's something like 0.2% or something. Meaning that if the flow goes through copper, it's diminishing the energy by a certain percentage. The superconductive would be a material that literally lets the energy flow through the matter, but it still would be matter. So this would be a great study, is to find materials in Elam Hazeh that are that are more transparent and less transparent. This is a very good example. Yeah. So it's still matter. The pane of glass is still a glass. It happens to be that it's clear. But it's matter. It's still from the world of matter, but a world of matter that allows energy the light to flow through it. But you can't compare it. So what makes it Primis Akeli? Because the Chemer Ayin Mamish, the physical eye itself, that's like all the physical, like your hands and your arms and so on, your arms and legs and so on. So what's the difference between the eye, let's say, and your hand? If you talk in the world of matter, they're both matter. They're both closer to each other than they are to the Kayach Hazrika and the Kayach Hariyah. Because both of them are spiritual. But there's something in the eye that's different than the other parts. The eye has in it, like he says, if you put, God forbid, your finger in where your eye is, it's not going to be a conducive conductor for the power to see. So there's on one side, it's a chemer. In other words, on one side, it's a complete keli, like any keli. On the other hand, this matter is constructed in a way that is a transparent channel to see. So it's comparable, similar to the tzurich. It's basically tailored to it. So to the area. But all this is in the chemer. Therefore, at the end of the day, it's like ksav. It's like written letters. It's an additional thing. It's not within the same matter. It's not that the power of sight has manifested itself in some way. It's the power of sight in a physical eye, but the physical eye is aligned with the energy that's flowing through it. The same thing is above. This is an example. What's above? That also with the container is similar to the energy. That even when the container is similar to the Ayir, in Primis HaKelim, it's still all container. It's still an additional thing. The fact is, the physical eye is additional element, a foreign addition to the power of vision, to the power of sight that the soul has, even when it's in heaven. Except it can't manifest. You can't see. Okay. And therefore, everywhere where there's some negiyas akli, somewhere the keli, somewhere this matter is touching, is affecting, the energy is not revealed. The way it is in its coarse source. It's revealed, but not the way it is in its coarse source. Because as soon as there's a color, it has to shape it.
So Neshama uses the Kecher without the eye after.
Yeah, but then we did say that, but it can't see Gashmius. That's the thing. Fine, because the Gashmius eye helps it, but the power, yeah. Just like the brain, the mind can learn Hashagas Alakus later, but to understand Gashmizdika things, we learn this. You need to have the Gashmizdika brain because it doesn't relate to God physical. So take the brain of a neshama in heaven, the mind of a neshama, it only relates to spiritual things. It won't relate to anything that's material.
I would be the interface with the Kecher.
The question is, after neshama leaves, after 120 years, and once it did understand Gashmis, does it remember Gashmis? Or only experiences Ruchnis? That would be interesting discussion.
As time goes by.
Or maybe it loses immediately. Or maybe it sees it only through, it's sometimes you think, you're down here, you're doing all kinds of things that are not so great. If all those neshamas are watching us and they're seeing it as we see it, that's not so pleasant. But if they see Beruchni, it's a bissel edel, if they see.
What are the neshamas? God's watching.
Okay, God is. God we've already been dealing with for all these years. I'm not as embarrassed in front of God as I am in front of my father. God, we can work our way through. He's more, he's seen more. He's seen it all. And I told you my uncle, who unfortunately was killed, Fitzi Lipsker. He was in the Maristan. He was a fine guy. He was killed in a car accident. Huh? Yeah, He was a very nice guy. He was a great guy. So anyway, he was a kid. He was once asleep. There was a thunderstorm. So he got all scared. So he came running to his mother. His mother says, what are you scared? He says, thunderstorm. You know, thunderstorm is scary. So he said, you have nothing to fear except the Rebbe. Okay, he goes back to sleep. But, the thunderstorm comes back an hour later. He's back at his mother's bed. She says, now what? He says, Chameir from the Meibishter.
You just changed the name.
Yeah, it's semantics. Yeah, good. Like Shechem Maimish, good. I will call Zoh Bachim Elevad. Kumikim L'mayel Mashakelim. Alkein B'Kol Mokum Shesh Negiah. That's a klal. Eina Edom is Gala. Kamoishu Betzim Mamish. She's adding now a rule. So as soon as you have a keli that's a different thing, it's not the thing itself. So bottom line, ink on parchment, yes, it's part of the parchment. You need the parchment surrounding it, everything. But the bottom line is the ink itself is not of the same material. Even though it's revealing Atzilus Kedusha. For example, klaf without the letters, I believe, are not as holy. It's not even Mekudesh, I think. Right? I don't know exactly when it becomes. Does have to be. I think there's a certain share of how much you have to write. If you just write Bereshis, I don't know if it's enough. Maybe it is because the kavanah. Any of you suffering here? How many letters?
How many? In other words, what you can throw away in a Sefer Torah?
When it would be started considered a Sefer Torah? How much? Yeah. Okay, but the bottom line is, so the letters are definitely a critical component, but they're letters and they're additional thing. Okay. But the containers of Keser, they're not a mahuz b'fnei atzmi. They're not like ink on parchment. They're not mahuz b'fnei atzmi. They're not a separate personality from the energy. They're completely not a separate personality. Here, at the end of the day, it's as transparent as you want it. It's still separate. The kelim. What would be an example? The example would be engraved letters. They totally do not conceal, cover up on the energy. And they radiate the energy the way it is, without any filter. One second. The physical world, so we're talking now not kalim that are, kalim will be, this is like levushim. Outside, here it's transparent, but it's separate. Okay, fine. The letters of engraved letters are from the thing, but they're still mashchir. So let's talk specifically. What means mashchir? It means when you make the engraving, it's like a shadow. Shadow is created. You're taking stone out. So there's right now an area that's a little. That's why you see the letter. So, harizadak al havokas ha'evan loy al etzem ha'evan tev. It's only the letters, right? It's only diminishing the shine of the stone, not the actual stone itself. Because you don't have here anything that's a concealer or a cover on the precious stone. Only something that darkens the light, the shine of the stone. It says it's concealed, but let's see. Remember, it is kalim of Keser. We're not talking about air. There's kalim there too. He's just saying it's not the same type of keli. We're not talking that's completely air. It's subtle differences, basically. Va'inyan l'mayla, who? And l'mayla. Let's see the nimshal, the moral here. What is it above? Because now, in the cover-up of containers, there's two things. One is that the core entity of the energy is not manifest in containers. Only an external element of the energy. In this element of the container, it's not that the container conceals or covers on the energy. So it's not like the container is coming as an active force to conceal. B'derech geirim levad means it's only circumstantial. It's incidental, so to speak. Why? Because what means incidental? Because it's going into a container, automatically it conceals. Not because the container is coming intentionally. I think that's what he wants to say. Let's see. Shebekol mokum sheba Because everywhere where something manifests a container, you don't have the core anywhere that manifests, it's only a reflection. Let's see the second one to understand the first one. Not positive what he means. But Derech Gerim Levad usually means it's an incidental cause, it's an incidental consequence. It's incidental consequence, not a direct.
It's Gerim that the Havakas should have a Shachris. It's not Gerim that the actual Eventave is
Yeah, but what's the difference? Not Al Master Kim. What's the word Gerim Levad mean?
It's like a grama. It's causing that the Havakas should be the one.
Okay, let's see what the second thing is to see there. Yeah, the second is that know that the Edom Islabish is actually is actually being concealed and covered up by the containers. Now the first way is also by engraved letters. Because the first thing, that's the difference. The difference is whether, like, I'll give you an example. When you pour, let's say, your liquid in the cup is not coming to conceal. It just happens to be that a keli is automatically going to conceal because that's its nature. But when you, for example, give a mashal, an example for idea, you want to conceal it. It's not a derech hagav. The whole point is to conceal it. That's its intention. It's not a side effect. So that's what he's saying. The first thing, since there's kalim in the fact that there's letters in the engraved letters, so at the end of the day, they have to do something. They have to conceal something. Because if it was the etzem, it would be stone. It would be the stone. The fact that there's a letter, that alone is telling you. But but the letters are not coming to conceal. The letters are coming to tell you a letter. It happens to be when you make a letter in something, it's a keli. It has to in some way conceal. But the energy that manifests is not at all concealed or hidden in these letters. And that's what it means that the letters only darken the shining, the brightness of the stone. Meaning the core energy. But the but that what the letter is, the letter, in other words, is not revealing, is concealing, incidentally, the whole energy. But what it is revealing, there's nothing concealing at all. When it comes to ink on parchment, the ink itself is a concealer. It's already not of the same material. This is the difference between written and engraved letters. The written letters, they are containers of Atzilus that conceal and cover up on the energy that manifests in them. But the kelim that are higher than Atzilus do not cover up on the energies that manifest in them. And the energy shines as it is. Basically, he's saying like this, that in the chikik, in Keser, higher than Atzilus, it conceals what's higher, the higher level of air. But the level that it is, doesn't conceal. In Kelim of Atzilus, it conceals not only the higher level, but even what it is, even its dimension, it also conceals. You see the distinction? That's the key distinction that he's saying. It's a quite, you have to elaborate on this. 1 second.
The letter is seen. What's it causing? It's causing a shadow. Like what you were saying before. The oil around it is the higher, like the gvil, is the higher thing. So it's causing a shadow on the around.
I want to give a good example. For it. Yesterday we spoke about the kindergarten to the advanced, where at the beginning you start with letters, aleph, beis. You begin to understand their words, ideas, and so on, to a point where the letters become almost invisible, and all you hear, all you sense is an idea. Like when you're thinking of an idea, you're not thinking in letters. Even though when you start expressing it and so on, you see there's letters. So I think the key is just trying to find but this is not just technical. There's a concept here. There's a level of letters that's expressing an idea, but the letters are almost, there's an expression, so it's an idea. Like the difference between before you think of an idea and after you think of an idea, There's some letters. When you're starting to think of an idea that a minute before you weren't, there's letters. But what kind of letters are they? They're letters like Keser. Their expression, I'm thinking now 2 plus 2 is 4, and I'm not thinking that day comes before night, for example. So there's a concept here. But at this point, the letters are completely of the idea. They're not yet in any way substance of their own. So there are letters. Compared to, let's call it your whole seichel, someone say the idea 2 plus 2 was 4 captures the whole brightness and brilliance of your mind. No, it's one idea. But it's an idea that's shining. But it's an idea but it's a specific parameters. There are letters. There's Anoichi, Hashem Elokecha is engraved on the luchas, and not the other words. Not Bereishis Bar Elokim. It's a different message. If you're going to say, is it as bright as the stone itself? No, because I engraved it now. Also, there's also 2 types of engraving, through and through, where there's no shadow. But I'm not going to get into that right now. You engraved, so it has a message. So the message is completely illuminating. Going back to the artist. The artist is envisioning now a piece of art. Only one. Is this his whole brilliance? No. Compared to Eir HaBligvul, it's definitely it's concealing the Bligvul. But what it's revealing is completely him. There's nothing concealed here. In the energy itself, it's the total energy of the idea 2 plus 2 is 4 is there. Nothing compromised. Once it gets into Atzilus, now I'm going to explain it to somebody. Now you're already putting it into Asis that you're going to write down, not engraved. Here, by explaining it, you're already diminishing even the concept of 2 plus 2 is 4. So even the idea of it is now also diminished. So that's the difference. There, the only thing that's missing is you don't have all the concepts that you have, the whole seichel, the whole bligvul, so to speak. But you do, what you have is illuminated, and it's of the same personality of your seichel. Once you give examples for it, once you begin to manifest in something a dover that's not of the muhus, it's already ink, as opposed to the parchment itself, you're now limiting also the flow of the energy. So there's 2 things that kelim do. One is kelim express an idea, another kelim conceal an idea, or diminish it. In chkika, you only have the first thing. In ksiva, you have both. That's the bottom line. I think that's pretty clear. No? So the idea is, so in other words, the concept, you have it completely in its full shining in Keser, but once it's written down, even that goes away as well. That's also diminished. So Kalim of Atzilus, wow, this needs a lot of explanation. I think we'll stop here because of this. No, because it goes more deeper. I don't want to go to the next level of seichel. Hold on one second. And this we're not even talking about levushim and dover zov. We're not even talking about biyah. Atzilus is already.
This isn't this level of bringing Aces from another.
I know. I said that before because he says the par. I think the difference is the parsa. We're not talking about the parsa. We're talking the kelim of Atzilus, the kelim of Keser. The parsa is where disorganized letters. I'll explain it. Yeah, I think there's the parsa that's a result of kelim of Keser, and there's the parsa as a result of kelim of Atzilus. So it's another. We'll discuss. That's already we're giving an example. So it's an example of the same idea, or it's an example of a separate idea.
A level higher.
Yeah. Because here's the kelim itself. We'll go through this. This needs again. Oh God. Okay, so we stop here. We did the beginning half of chapter 121, page Reish Lamed Aleph 234, 235.
What's the Jota?